Hey, are any of you old enough to have talked to someone who was alive back when our ancestors used to give each other something they called directions? There was a time when people didn't have black robots that they kept in their phone that would tell them where to go, and black robots to know where everybody is within a meter at any given time, which I can't think of any potential problem ever with that. So it makes sense that we completely went away from this old notion of directions. But back in the day, apparently in simpler times with simpler people, folks would be like, hey, I want to go to a place, but I don't know where that is. Could you tell me how to get there? And then another person who did know how to get there would be like, yeah, first you go to the thing and the other thing, and then you look for this landmark, and then you turn this way, and then you go to this thing, but don't do that. But go to this other way instead, and then there you'll be to the thing. And everybody's like, oh, thanks. And then I'm told apparently it generally worked. Well, when our ancestors used to give these directions, it seems to me that they would come in two parts. There was the general don't get distracted by this stuff part, and then there was the more specific really be on the lookout, here are the really important detailed turn parts. So that don't get distracted part would be like, all right, well, everybody knows the main highways. You just get on the main highway. And as you're going along that, you're going to go past the big red barn on the right. Don't turn in there. And then on the left, you're going to see the stack of cars that look like Stonehenge. Don't go in there. And then after that, you're going to pass the Mecca of albino squirrels. Just keep going past that. And then once you get into town, and this is where the specifics start, you're going to take that street all the way to Prospect Avenue. Then you're going to take a left on Prospect, and you're going to go clear down that, past Shields, and then right before you get to College Avenue, you're going to take a right into this little strip mall area. It's tricky because there's train tracks right there, and you're kind of in the university campus area. You're going to pull in there. There's a military surplus store and a burrito place, but you'll see the sign right there, and you'll be to where you want to be. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, hey, wait a minute, that sounded like the directions for how to get from the west side of Fort Collins, Colorado to Showbiz Pizza circa 1987, you are absolutely right. But in those two parts of the directions, you have clearly got the very specifics. Look for this thing. This is what's going to happen here. This is what's going to happen here part. And you've also got the very general, don't be distracted by this stuff. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. Ignore these landmarks. But if you see those landmarks, you're still on the right track stuff. Likewise, in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus has been asked for directions by his disciples. And what they want to know is, when is all of this reckoning going to happen with the temple and everything else about how things are going to work out with the end of time? And what will be the sign of that's Jesus's coming, and the end of the age? And then Jesus answers them in verse 4 with stuff we started talking about yesterday. Jesus starts giving the directions. And as I read this, see if you think this first part are the more general directions about like, all right, you're on the road, just keep going. You're going to see some stuff. Just roll past that. That's to be expected. You're on the right track. Or if this first stuff he's saying is more of the specific stuff, like turn here, look for this sign, go there, watch out for that thing, make this move at this point. Here we go. Matthew 24:4. Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming, I'm the Christ, and will deceive many. You'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you're not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There'll be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Pretty clearly, that's the part of the directions that are like, all right, you're on the big, long straightaway. You're going to see some stuff. It's going to look interesting. Big red barn, Carhenge, Mecca of albino squirrels. But you just keep going past all of that stuff. If you see it, it means you're on the right track. And then later, when we keep going, starting with verse 9, we'll see that, now we're getting down into the local neighborhood, and the directions are getting much more specific, and you should be looking out for this little thing and that little thing, and we'll get into those details later on. So in light of that, let's go back here to the beginning of Jesus' answer to their question and see which of these things correspond to the big red barn, the Carhenge, the Mecca of albino squirrels, and all the other things that you're just going to see along the way, and so keep going. All right, so the first is the false messiahs. We talked about that in depth yesterday, talked about that a while back on that video I made about the failed messiahs, rival messiahs, whatever I called the thing. And these people are going to come along and say, I'm the Christ. Your job is to know that people were going to do that and not be surprised by it, but don't turn there. Don't get off the road to go and investigate further, hang out with the fake messiahs. Those are supposed to be there. It just means you're on the right road. It means history's headed in the right direction. Don't worry. You haven't gone past the end of time. If you're seeing that means everything's working out. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Well, wars and rumors of wars are a really big deal. We got rumors of wars right now as I'm recording this. It seems like we just need to have another one every so often. And if you're catching in my tone of voice that I'm trying to refrain from being overly political, but that I feel really, really strongly about there being too many stupid wars all the time because I super hate killing people and most of them are completely unnecessary and idiotic, then you're hearing me correctly. We don't need to have another war, but there's always rumors of wars and the next thing that's going to happen and it's going to be apocalyptic and this is the end of time. No, the reality is that all of these wars and rumors of wars, they're just, Carhenge. It's just one more thing that you got to go past. There's going to be a whole bunch of that. Humanity's broken and stupid. Government's always going to government and want to pick fights with other people for whatever dumb reason. And they will always see to it that the blood of literally anyone except the people who make the decisions to go to war will be shed on their behalf for whatever very important cause there is out there that fighting needs to happen over. Buildings will get blown up and burned and people will get killed wrongly and it'll be a big giant mess. And in the end, everybody will be like, well, that's just, we all learned some lessons here. And I guess that's a good thing. And maybe some lines will get redrawn and then we'll just reload and we'll do it again. Well, it would be very tempting given the absolutely cataclysmic, hellish scale and consequences of human warfare to imagine that every time that happens in your neck of the woods or globally that this is probably it. This has got to be the one because it's hard to imagine things much worse and more wasteful and catastrophic than unending stupid war. But what Jesus seems to be saying is, no, don't turn off there and imagine that's the end of things. That's just Carhenge. You're going to go past it. There's no way to avoid it. This is human nature. It's going to happen. Don't inflate this evil of humanity all the way to the level of the end of things. Rather, perhaps get a little bit familiar with it because you're going to keep seeing this until the end of all things. Disappointing though that may be. So we've gone past the fake Messiah turn off, but we didn't take it. Just keep going straight. You're supposed to see that. We've gone past the Carhenge war turn off. Yeah, as interesting as that might look, and as much as it might seem like that's the biggest, most importantest thing ever. No, keep rolling. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. And then we get to nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there'll be famines and earthquakes in various places. And I suppose that corresponds to the Mecca of albino squirrels up here on the left-hand side. It would seem like that would be the destination because it's the Mecca of albino squirrels. But it isn't. It's just one more thing that inevitably is going to be along the way. Now, what do all of these things have in common? Fake claims to deity, unending selfishness, bloodshed, a lust for violence driven by hatred and selfishness, and then natural calamities and famines. Some famine is produced, I suppose, by nature, but historically, a whole lot of famine, at least in the last several centuries, has been produced by ineptitude of, or it's straight up evil leadership on the parts of states. What do all these things have in common? They're all demonstrative of the complete and total brokenness of world kingdom values. And as long as there's a world kingdom, and as long as history keeps hurtling forward out of control while acting like we're totally in control, we're going to keep doing these things and normalizing these things, and they're going to run in cycles. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. In other words, the directions that he's giving here say, just keep going straight past all of that stuff. You're just going to see this when you're out on the road. And even specifically, if you're going to the destination you're asking about, you're going to see these things along the way. Clearly, the teaching of Jesus and the Bible is to apply kingdom values to these things, and the call would be for kingdom citizens to be salt and light and to try to do redemptive things in the midst of all of this world kingdom evil. But ultimately, also, don't be discouraged and don't imagine that you are prematurely to the destination. This stuff is going to happen because world system is gonna world system. All these are the beginnings of birth pains. As a kid, that wouldn't have meant much to me, but now that we've had 3 kids, I know that there's this stuff that happens before the actual birthing happens. Braxton Hicks contractions that is, that are not meant to deliver the baby, but that are meant to position the baby and get the baby and the mom ready for the delivery contractions to start that function in a different way and accomplish a different thing. We're not quite to birth yet. It's not like there's 30 seconds between contractions, keep breathing. No, this is stuff that can be happening days in advance of birth and does happen days in advance of birth. And so to an original audience that would have been far more familiar than I ever was growing up, they would have registered, okay, so this doesn't mean we're quite there to the end of the road yet, but all of these things are positioning, getting things ready. They're inevitable. They're predictable. You don't get to the birth part unless you go through these birth pains first. I say all of that with enormous sympathy and respect for every one of you brave warrior women who somehow do the thing that is birth, which continues to absolutely melt my brain and give me 500% respect for each and every one of you, literally. And apparently God understands that a little bit too, because he uses what you moms have gone through to illustrate this particular point. All of this to say, the part one of Jesus' answer to when will this happen and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age focuses first on the stuff that is just going to happen. The stuff that is inevitable, the stuff that you're just going to see when you're out driving to where you're getting to, or even the stuff that just specifically you can't help but drive past on the way to the thing. All of these things are going to occur, and that last little word picture of birth pains even indicates that there's some purpose to this, that in God's providence, these things are being used to reposition and rearrange the metaphorical baby and the metaphorical mother to the culminating event, which is birth in the illustration, or in terms of what Jesus is talking about, the reckoning, the realization of all of these realities about the kingdom and the sorting out of all this stuff that has gone wrong. So at this point, there are some folks who read this and they're like, these are the things that you got to look for, and this means this, and we got to get out the red yarn. And if you look at Afghanistan and what happened in the 1950s and what this person claimed in 1894 and what this prophetess said in 1791, and you add it all up, then like clearly from this passage you can see that Jesus is going to return on October 6th, 2053, and like, whoa, pump the brakes. I don't think that's at least what this part of the passage is talking about at all. This is just the stuff that you're going to see along the way. Keep a cool head, obey God, be redemptive along the way, and know that this stuff all serves some purpose, as it is not indicative of some untended thing hurtling totally out of control, but this thing is tended, it is going somewhere, and though you might not see God in all of those things, he is still directing this toward the outcome that he is going to bring about. And then we're going to see in the verses we flirted with, starting in verse 9 a little bit earlier, that now Jesus is going to pivot into something more specific about the directions that he's giving the disciples. Fascinating stuff. Thanks for thinking about it with me. Make sure to check out the Mecca of Albino Squirrels if you ever see that as you're driving down the road. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.